Hello, welcome to Beginners Python and Machine Learning. My name is Tim Cummings. We're a meetup group to help people get into Python and also try things in machine learning. Today we'll be looking at Python and how to create a Django app that uses the Strava API. So you'll be learning a bit about Django applications, which are web applications, if you want to write a web application. We'll be doing it in PyCharm, which is an integrated development environment, or IDE, and we'll be using the Strava API to collect data from Strava, and we'll be saving that in a database. So in the database stuff, we'll be using the Django database methods that they provide to do that. So this is a live session. You can ask questions as we go through. I'll be watching on YouTube chat. There's nothing there yet. And I'll also be watching on Slack channel Beginners Python in the Learning to Code channel. So yeah, ask those questions. Sometimes the YouTube one gets censored, but the Slack one is more likely to get through. So there's instructions down below the video that tells you how to get onto our Slack account. All right, so we started this app a few weeks ago. We used Strava authentication to authenticate the app. So this one's going to be different. We're going to use the Strava API to get data out of Strava. So we could do things. We're not doing charts today, or maps, but we could do things like download an event that we can plot it on a map like this. So we've got, yes, thanks. A nice comment there. We've been doing a lot of work over the last 6 years. So we just started with a bunch of people who's wanted a mentor and how to get started in Python, and we've just been going on from there. So there's quite a good backlog of data of sessions that you can look at on YouTube. We went over COVID, we went online, and so those sessions now you can just look up in the past. So it's a good archive. Right, so today we've got a script, and the link to the script is here. It's on our GitHub site, and if you go to the GitHub site, you'll also see all the other sessions that we've done. So I've opened that link. That link is below the video. It's also in the meetup page. Here's the script that we're going to be following today, and here's some past ones if you want to look back through them and find, and they'll all have links in them of which are the videos that go with them. And okay, I was one of them, and you've been inspiring me of never giving up. Good. So River City Labs, yes, that was a while ago. And Zilex likes it too. Very good. So we'll follow this session. We see part one, so you can go to there if you wanted to do that. But we'll be starting. I'll start from fresh, but we'll use the code that's already been uploaded to GitHub, so that we don't have to type everything from the last session. We'll have to do a little bit of setup, like creating a database and things like that. So we're doing part two today. I haven't even put the links in, but I'll do that. So the first thing to do is to create a project, and I've given you a bit of a link to the tutorial on Django that tells you how to do it. Now we're going to clone a repository because we want the first 8 steps to all be done for us, because they were done in our last session. So let's click on clone repository. I'm going to make this a special directory for this one, 226, and the URL is this URL. So you can do this from the command line using this command, git clone, and the site, but let's just try using PyCharm's way of cloning a repository. And think I might have to put that name in there. So let's clone that. And you can see it's cloning the repository. Do we trust it? Yes, we trust it. Now I'm not going to bother excluding those other things. But I'm going to create a virtual environment, and whenever you're doing Python work, I always recommend doing a virtual environment because it stops each of your projects interacting with each other. If you install libraries in the system environment, then they can corrupt all your programs just by existing. So we're going to create it. It's going to be based on Python 3.13 that I've got installed, and it's going to use the dependencies that are in this requirements.txt file, because it's a convention that Python programmers use, is to create a requirements.txt file. So let's do that. I got a message here, failed to exclude. That just required administrator access, and I didn't have that on this user, so it doesn't need to do that. It'll just run a little bit slower. Okay, so that's installing the packages and creating a virtual environment. You can see the virtual environment is created in a folder up here, .venv, and then it's created our two folders. So we have a site folder and an application folder. So you have one site folder on a site, and then you have several applications can be on that site. We're just going to have one, and that's going to be the name of our application folder. And if we look down here in the bottom left, you can see this. It's got a toolbar icon for Git, and that'll tell us where we are. And you can see it's got all these different steps, so you can jump in anywhere on this project. We're going to jump in on step 8. So if you were reading the instructions, it says the next thing we want to do is check out step 8. So let's do that. I'm going to right click on it and just say checkout, which is the top item, or you could have typed that checkout command in the command line. And I've got, this is the readme, that's the readme for the last one, so it's not much use for us now, but we'll follow the one on the web here to see what we're supposed to do. So I hope you can follow along. If I'm going too fast, just let me know. We'll have a quick look at what's in our requirements.txt file. So these are the libraries. The main one here is Django, and Django allauth. So allauth is what we're using for authentication, and it also it understands social networks and it considers Strava to be a social network, so it does know a little bit about the tokens and the Strava API, and we'll take advantage of that today. Alright, so we've checked out step 8. Now when you're using Git, the first thing you do, if you've checked out a branch, is fork the branch, and that way you can't accidentally corrupt the branch with bad stuff. And it's only when you're happy with the code that you've written you can merge it back into the branch if you want. In this case we're using branches a little bit differently, so we would actually never merge it back in because we want step 8 to always be step 8. So let's say we want a new branch from step 8, and we'll call that one meetup 226. So it's created a new branch which is actually at the same point as step 8. And if we look over here, I'll just make it a bit bigger, we can see there's step 8. I can hover over it and it'll tell me that there's 2 branches there. It's got the head, which is where we're working, which is the yellow tag. We've got meetup 226, the one we just created, step 08, which is the one that we copied it from, and because we haven't made any changes, they're identical. And it also says it's the same as step 08 on our origin, which is the GitHub repository we cloned from in the first place. right. These are underlined because there's a dependencies update to unaffected 6.0a. That's a bit far to update. But down here on the left we've got Python packages, and so it'll give you more information about these ones, and we can look at Django here and see that it tells us a bit about that package, and it also says we can update from 5.2.6 to 5.2.8. So 6.0.a is going to be an alpha release, so we won't go to that, but we could go to 5.2.8 if there's a problem. So let's just change that to 8. Save, and then we can, from the terminal, we'll start up a terminal. I'm on Windows, so it's PowerShell, and we're using the .venv virtual environment, and from here we can say pip install -r requirements.txt. I just press tab to do command completion, and it's found 5.2.8 and upgraded. And there it is. And now the squiggly line underneath it has gone away. Now you could do that with the other ones with squiggly lines if you want, but anyway, we'll just leave it as it is for now. We've installed the dependencies, and now we need to create a database to store the data. And so we can just type in this command, python manage.py migrate, and we can do this in a terminal window that we are in now. So if I just type Python, and because it's in the virtual environment, it'll use the Python that's been installed there, which is 3.13. Now that's found all the database, it's created the database, and it's found all the changes that need to happen to the database to get it to work with Strava, and that was all set up in the last meetup that we did. Now we need to add our secret key. So if you remember, if we created a secret key in meetup 220. So I've got, if I go into my Google Drive, and in API keys we created a Strava key.json, and if you look at I should be able to just paste that in there, Strava key.json. Yep. Okay, I was supposed to show that, so I'll have to delete that key after we finish this, and I'll create a new one. So, and we need to create social apps. So this was actually a script that we created to work for when we were installing, but we need to do it now so that it puts some data into the database for us. Okay, and it's created the social app Strava, and so that'll be useful now for being used for social authentication, and it'll also be used for creating tokens that we can save and use the, once we've got the tokens, we can then use the interesting parts of the Strava API to get data. You can do it without creating a token, but it only gives you a very limited set of data you can get hold of. Okay. Now we'll create a run configuration for run server. So run configurations, they're up here. So this is in PyCharm as a run configuration, and by doing this it just makes it easier to start and stop our application. So there's none there at the moment. We'll create a new one. It's going to be a Python run configuration. We're going to call it run server. That's just a name so we can identify it. The virtual environment should be our virtual environment. Yep, there it is. .v and v scripts Python, so that's correct. It's going to be a module, not a script, and the module that we're going to use is called manage, and the parameter for manage is going to be run server, and that's just going to run python manage.py run server. And then we've got python up buffered equals 1. Okay, so let's say okay to that, and now up in here in our run configurations we've got our one called run server, and we can run it and see what it looks like. So I can press either the play button or the debug button. Let's try the play button, and it's running. And let's go over here, let's open this in a new link. That's the link we want, localhost 8000. And we've got our app running. So let's see if we can sign in to our app. I haven't created a user, but signing in with Strava will create a user. You're about to sign in using a third-party account. So this page has come from Django allauth, which is why it doesn't look very nice at the moment. But in a later session I'll show you how to make that look better. And now it's asking us if we want to go to Strava, log in with Strava. Yes, we do. It uses cookies, that's okay. And now I'm going to actually use Google to sign in on Strava. So I'm using Strava to sign into my app, but I'm going to use Google to sign into Strava, and then it will go back to it's going to be interesting if this works. I might have to do it. I might have to do it in a different web browser if this doesn't work. So it's redirected. So Google redirected back to Strava, and then Strava redirected back to our app, and then it's created a new user in our app called Tim Cummings, which it got from Strava, and it's put the Strava ID in there. It doesn't know the parkrun ID, and that's our app. So the authentication is working from where we were last time. So that's all good news. So let's go back to our script. And the first thing we want to do is we want to use Strava tokens to get the activity data. Now, if you don't want to be doing all the typing, you can just say check out step 9, but I'm going to do all the typing from now on so that we can see exactly what's required. Now, the steps that we need to do to get this activity data, first we need to tell Django allauth to save the Strava tokens, and that, I tell you, was the hardest thing that I had to work out, because I could not find that documented anywhere. But once I found out how to do it, it is dead easy. Then we're going to create a function to refresh the Strava tokens if that's required, because Django allauth doesn't do that automatically. So we did that back in meetup 220 when we were just using Colab. We showed a way of refreshing the Strava token. So we'll just use code similar to that. Then we're going to create a function in our views.py file. And remember, in views, that's where we put in basically what all the when a user clicks on a link, it's going to pull up a view. So in our views file, we put all the different views that the user can get, and some of those can have actions in them, and one of them will be to fetch the activities and then return one of the views that we've already got. So we'll put that function into views.py. Then we have to configure Django and tell it what the URL is going to be that the user is going to either type in or click on, that's going to call that function. And that is put in urls.py. and then we have to go to the template and create a hyperlink with that URL. So with that URL, it will then look at urls.py to see what it's supposed to do when that URL gets clicked on, and that'll say go to views and run a function. So then it'll go to the function, and then it will do that. So we'll have everything created. Okay, so let's do all those steps. So the first one, save the Strava tokens. Now I was writing code all over the place to save these tokens until I finally found this little configuration: social account store tokens equals true. So let's put that in, and we put that on the site level, not the app level, in our settings.py. So if we look over here, we can see our site, and it's got a settings.py, and we'll scroll down there. And we've got social account. I might put it under that. Social account providers is going to be Strava, and let's put in that we want social account to store tokens equals true. Okay, now we need to refresh. So I went through the code for this in Meetup 220, is how to refresh a token. So basically, every token, it'll last for a certain amount of time, not very long actually, I think 4 hours or something. And when it's expired, so you check the expiry, and if it's expired, then you need to actually send a different request to Strava to say refresh the token. You get the new token. You want to then save that new token in the database, and then you can use that token as the authentication for getting other data. So I recommend here creating a new file called Strava token.py, and that's in the app, not the site. So we go into here, we right click and say new Python file, and it's going to be called Strava token. We'll add that into Git, and we'll copy all this code in here and paste it into there. So what's it going to do? I've turned on logging. It's, first of all, it goes to the database. This is the Django. This is how you get data out of a Django database. So social account being the table that we're getting data out of. In the objects, we want to get the one where the UID equals the Strava ID. So that's the Strava ID of the user who's currently in here and wants to refresh the token, and that provider is Strava. So this database can store social accounts for several different social accounts all in the one database, and so we're just looking at the Strava one. Then we'll find all the tokens that are stored for that account, once again using this Django code for getting data out of a database, which is the name of the class, and in the objects just says records that are in the database, and we just want to filter them to all those that have account equals social account. And that'll tell us how many we found. It should be 1 or 0. Then we just grab the first one, check that if it's expired, so 11 expires at time, and if that's before now, then we'll say it's expired, and we'll use this URL to go to Strava and get a refresh one. So we have to provide the password and our refresh token that was stored in our Strava key JSON file, and then the response, which will go we'll get the response, and if it's okay, then we'll grab the new token out of that. Otherwise, we'll say there was an error. We'll save the token, Strava token.save, complete with new information like when it expires. So we have to do this manually because allauth doesn't do this, because I guess because every social network is different, and so it hasn't worked this one out for Strava yet. And then it'll just return it. So that's what we've done here. Right, so the next step was to create the function in views.py to fetch those activities from Strava. So this is what an activity looks like when you get it out of Strava. I've just cut it down a bit. So it's got things like the athlete ID. It's got things like the start date local, where you latitude and longitude you started, where you ended, what time zone you're in, what type it was, whether it's visible to everyone, and yeah, there's the time zone. Okay, so we can. Okay, we got a good question here. What is PyCharm? So PyCharm is it's a free integrated development environment. So it's in the early days when you were writing Python code, we used to just use a text editor, which is just a way of writing the code into a file, and then we'd have to run it from the command line. But an IDE makes it easier to do that. There's a few IDEs around. The one that I really like using is the one from JetBrains, and that's called PyCharm. So if you go to jetbrains.com and we'll go to developer tools, and here's PyCharm in the developer tools, and you can download that. It's free forever, or you can pay extra and get the pro version, but I'm just using the free version. It seems pretty good. So it's the same unified product, means the pro version and the free version are the same download, and the functionality just changes if you put in your registration key. So you just download that one. Okay. So PyCharm, yeah, we're writing a Python program that will be a web application. So web applications, they look like websites, but the content of the web application is dynamic, based on data in a database. Now there's a lot of work that goes into building a web application, and so and it's the same for all web applications. So some people have developed a framework called Django, D-J-A-N-G-O, that we're going to use, and that makes it easy to create these web applications in Python. So the web application, it runs on the server, it takes a request in, it generates the HTML dynamically, and then just sends the static HTML to the user, and then it displays in their web browser. So what is this application about? The idea of this one is to get the data from Strava. So Strava is a application that people use, a lot of runners use it to record their runs, and they it stores a history of all their runs that they've done. We want to do some calculations on those runs, maybe for a little competition that we want to run. So we're going to get people to log into our web application, download their Strava, and then it gets compared to other people's Strava results, and we can see who wins the competition. The simple competition that we're going to run is that they have to run every week for 3 months and get faster every week. So that's the challenge, and we'll see who does that the best. But today we're going to look at how do we get the data from Strava that we can do that. So this is what a web application looks like. You can see I'm running this in Firefox. It could also run in Chrome, and you can see it's just got links that we can click on. We can sign out, update member details. That one doesn't do anything yet. Sign out will sign us out. Are you sure we want to sign out? And then we can sign back in. And because of cookies, it doesn't even take us to Strava. We just said we've gone in through Strava. We can also say view activities. I don't think it'll show us anything because we haven't recovered any activities yet. But that's what a web application looks like. It's just a way of clicking on links to get us around and look at dynamic data out of a database. All right, back to the script. Yeah, so web applications can be quite complicated, and so this one I'm going to be doing over several sessions. The last session we did on it was quite involved, and it showed how to do authentication of a web application. So when someone comes to a web app, they need to sign in, and it's best if you can use a third party to handle that authentication, because then you don't have to worry about storing passwords or emailing users when they've forgotten a password. That's all handled by someone else, and the someone else in this case we're going to use Strava, because we thought, well, they're going to have a Strava account to be in the competition. We know they're going to have a Strava account. They may not have a Google account, so that way if we use Strava, then everyone who's going to use this application is going to be able to log in without even creating an account beforehand. All right, so views.py is this file here. So let's open that. And at the top here, we've got our import statements, which we want, that lets us use other libraries. And these are the import statements that we need. So we'll copy those, and I'll just put them right at the top. And then we'll set a base time zone. I guess that's yes, we'll do that, because the app's going to be running in Brisbane, so that'll be the time zone that the app's going to be running in. And we'll set up logging as well, so that we can see things that are going on. So usually as I use these libraries, they go from grayed out to actually in color. So it's just a little thing that IDE will do for me. It says you've imported date time, but you haven't used it, and that's just a good thing for me for checking and go, well, why have I imported if I'm not using it? And import a request, I haven't used it yet, and import fetch Strava token, I haven't used, but anyway, we'll use them soon. And now all of this is a function, so I'll put this one right at the end. In fact, I'll grab both of these and we'll stick them right at the end. So what do these functions do? Fetch activities. Given a Strava ID, we call fetch Strava token, which is the function we created before, and that'll give us the token. And first it will check if it needs refreshing, and if it does need refreshing, it'll refresh it for us. Then we'll send a filter, and what we want to do is we want to look at, in the current year, any activities that have happened between January and before April, so they finish before April. We're going to use this endpoint which is how we call the API. We're going to use these headers. So if you want to look at Meetup 220, it'll explain more about calling the API. And then we send in a filter, and these are the things we have to send in: before date and after date, and which page number we want, and how many numbers we want per page. So that's useful, because in a web application, sometimes someone might have done thousands of runs, and you don't want them to all come at once, because there's no way you're going to display them all at once. So we're going to go, well, let's get 200 maximum, and if they've got more than 200, well, in our case it's bad luck, but in other cases, in a web app, you'd have some sort of facility for paging through them, so that someone could look at the first page and then the second page. And to provide these dates, this is going to go into JSON, and JSON doesn't have a date format so much, but what we can use the timestamp, which is the number of seconds since the Unix epoch, 1st of January 1970, and we just provide that number of seconds there, and that'll tell Strava which activities we're going to be interested in. we get the activity data. All right, so that's a function just to fetch data, and we're going to use it from different places, which is why I've separated that out into one function. And now this is the function that gets called when someone clicks on a link. So fetch and view activities. It's going to fetch the activities from Strava without filtering and just display them all, asking the user which ones should be saved. So the URL is going to be this, bpaml Strava show unsaved activities available on Strava. And the first thing it's do is going to call the function that we wrote up above, and then it's going to see if there were no activities, it's just going to return the index page. If there otherwise there are, it's going to find the social account that's in the database and any activities that have already been saved there. And I've got a function for that, which we must have created last meetup. Then I'm going to create a set. So a set is like a list or a tuple. The difference about a set is that you don't have any duplicates in a set, so we know that every item in there is unique, and it's going to be a set of all the IDs for activities that are currently stored in the database. And I've just used set comprehension there to create the set all in one line. If you want me to explain that in more detail, I can. And I've put a logger just to say what the set is that we've found, and then I'm going to go through my list of Strava activities to find which ones have already been saved, and if they have, I'm going to delete them from the new list that I've just retrieved from Strava, and then I'm going to display that list. It looks like I'm doing stuff twice here. I'm deleting it and then I'm just not getting it. So I probably don't need those 3 lines here. I could probably just have done this line and it would just get me the new IDs that I can pass through. And then if you remember how to send stuff to Django, we use this render function which creates all the HTML of the page that we want to create, but we also have to send to it, or have to say what the template is and then give it a context, which is just some of the data that we want displayed in there. So we're going to display who the athlete is and the list of activities that they've got. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I don't need those 3 lines. Anyway, we've copied that across, and now we can put a URL in urls.py. Remember those steps that we had? These are the existing URLs, and the new one is view unsaved activities available on Strava. So let's just stick that one in there. And see it's underlined in red. Nice feature of an IDE to tell me that I'm using this function, but I haven't imported it yet. And so there it is, and now we'll go up to our import and we'll add that into our imports, which is this line here. And now it's no longer underlined in red. So that's looking good. And we're working through that list of things we need to do. Now we need to go into our template, and we have to add a link that they can click on, and we also have to add a table where we can display all these new activities that aren't currently saved. So I've just put a comment in there to say put this after the existing table that shows the saved activities. So we'll copy all of that. We'll go over to our template, and we're looking for athlete.html. And here it is. Here's our table, saved activities, and a table of saved activities. And then after that, we're going to put in the unsaved activities. And that's all going to go into the user is authenticated block. So that's going to be before this else. So I'll paste that all in. And then the else is just if the user is not authenticated, then it will say please sign in. Yep. All right, so let's try running that. Every time we make a change, Django will often just reload, so we don't even have to restart it, which is pretty clever. So let's go and view activities, see if that works. So we've now got this link here, view unsaved activities available on Strava. So if I click on that, it'll go off to Strava. It found one social token. It found 66 activities, and it found none currently saved. So we've got those, and it's now displaying them. So under saved activities, I've got nothing, and under other Strava activities, I've got all of these. So these are all the activities that have happened between January and before April this year. And you see here, I just put to do, hyperlink to save. So I haven't got any way of saving them yet, but I can at least view them. And you can see the ID, the date, start time in seconds, a description that I typed into Strava, how far it was, how long it took. So that's pretty good. It's collected all that data for us. So hopefully if you've got your own Strava account, it would have collected your data in doing that. Able to save one activity in the database. Okay, so remember that to do, we want to save, we want to put a link in that's going to save it. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to do the function to create that activity from Strava, and we need to save it. So save it is the function that's going to be called. I've got login required is an annotation because it starts with an @ symbol there on this function, which means don't run this function unless the person's logged in. So it's just a security thing. And we'll put all of that into views, and we'll just put it at the bottom. So I'll copy that. That goes into views. So I hope you're understanding what's going on here. It's a fair bit to make it all happen. But remember to ask questions if it's not making sense. So you can see here to save it, I'm looking at the so the JSON data comes in. I'm just going to scroll up here. This is what the JSON data is going to look like, something similar to that. And then I've got to save that into the database, but I'm going to do some work on it first. So for example, when we get JSON data, it comes in as a dictionary in Python. And I'm going to look up time zone and split it on the space, and then just look at the second item in it. So time zone is this. So I'm going to look at Australia/Brisbane, and I'm going to create a Python time zone from that. And then I'm going to parse. Let's close this so I can see what's going on. I'm going to parse start date using this format, and I'm going to parse start date local using the same format and store them into Python variables. And so there'll be date time variables. Then and then start date is another thing I want, which I will do just by looking at the date of the start time. So that'll just drop the time. And once I've got all that data, I can create my activity object, which has got all these fields. So the athlete is the user who's currently logged in, or whose Strava ID has been used. The ID comes with the activity. We've got the start date, start time, the start time local, and we're going to get rid of any time zone information that's in that and store that without a time zone. Then we're going to have store the time zone itself, store the distance, the name, and duration. So duration needs to be a time delta. So we're going to take the elapsed time that came out of here, which is 3187, and create a Python time delta to store in Strava duration. And we're also going to store this polyline, which will be a string, and that'll help us plot on maps later. And then we just activity save. That's how you save in Django database. So Django database is, you can link it to any outside database. So at the moment we're linked to SQLite 3, but when we deploy we might link it to MySQL or PostgreSQL. And so the advantage of that is that we don't have to change any of the code. We can just do a configuration at the beginning to say now we've changed to a different database, and Django will automatically reinterpret all the database commands that we've put in and convert it into the language of the particular database that we've chosen. So we don't need to know any of the differences between all the database languages. We just need to know the Django code for saving and retrieving and doing all those operations in database data, which means that you are running with the lowest common denominator. Like, you can only do stuff that's available in all databases, but that's a pretty good set of features. You just might not be able to use the latest and greatest features out of a particular database. Okay, that was databases. Let's scroll back down to where we were up to. Able to save one. We've done this. So when we call this, we're given the Strava ID and activity ID to say we want, for this Strava user, save this activity. We'll call it up. We'll make the get request. We'll actually do another API request just for that activity ID, because we've forgotten all the data that once we get to the end of the function, our data is no longer saved, so we need to fetch it again. But we only need to fetch the one item that they want saved, not all the others. And then when we finish saving it, then we'll call our view activities that will show that new activity included. Alright, so we've got that one, save activity, yes. We have to set up the URL for this one. So once again, our import statement goes into urls.py, and our URL goes here. And now we can put this hyperlink into our template and we'll be able to call it. So let's go to athlete.html, and where it said to do hyperlink to save, we've now got the hyperlink. So let's type that in. And so here we can see we say we want the URL for this URL, which is save activity. We're going to create a URL that is for that and put in the href of the hyperlink, and we want to pass in the athlete unique identifier and the activity identifier, and it will use this format here to work out how to construct the correct URL with Strava ID and activity ID to make a URL that can be clicked on. So it's creating the URLs and it's interpreting the URLs, and it's all done in the one place, so it can't ever be out of sync. So let's go back to here. We'll look at our user. Once again, he's got no saved activities. We'll view the unsaved activities. And let's save this first one, parkrun, which is on the 29th of March. So I click on the link and I get a thing saying delete activity is not a valid view function. So we've already, in our template, we've already created a way of deleting an activity, which is right here, but we haven't defined that function yet. So we have to define that function before we can use this template. So let's do that. And it's the next step here, so that's good. We want to put into views a function to delete that activity. So we go into views. Delete activity. We'll set up the URL for that one. So we need to know where to import it from, which is the same place. And we need to know what the pattern of the URL is. Let's put in the pattern, and now we can try it out. So you see, as I click out of here, Django realizes that one of the files has been changed, and so it restarts, reloads itself. And we can go back here. We'll go back here and we'll try saving this parkrun. And there we go. And now you see what's happened is I've clicked on the save button twice, and so it saved it twice for me. So let's try deleting it. And that didn't do much. Delete activity. There we go. It deleted. I think it did delete it, but yes, it deleted it. But we then viewed the page before it had been deleted. So there's a little bit of a sequence error in our code. Well, let's try again. Now we'll view the unsaved activities available on Strava. We'll save. Let's try a different one this time. We'll try Greenbank Parkrun. And that saved it and showed us the change list. So these are all the saved ones now, and we'd have to view the unsaved ones again. If we view the unsaved ones, we'll see Greenbank should be taken out of the list, which it is. So there's nothing there on the 22nd apart from our warm-up. And now if we try to delete Greenbank, it displays it. So we've got a caching issue or something, sequence issue. But if I go back into this page by clicking on my name here, it now shows the correct saved data, and which doesn't include it. All right, so that's all going well. Prevent undesirable consequences, spell it correctly, of page refreshes. Notice how refreshing the page after saving or deleting repeats the last action. And that's what we've found. A common web pattern is PRG, which is post, redirect, get. We don't have the initial post request, but we can still redirect and get the page to ensure the address bar has a benign URL that can be refreshed without danger. All right, so the way to do that, so the following last line replaces the last line of save activity. So we'll go into save activity and just show you that what's happening. So if I did this one, church to church, I say save, and now if I refresh the page, you see how it's got save activity in the URL there. If I refresh that, it adds it again. So that's not very good. So to get around that, we put this change in here. So we're going to import redirect from in views. And that's in shortcuts, so I can just type it in here. Redirect. And then at the bottom of save activity, rather than return view activities, which would still have the same URL, which is save activity there, we'll do a redirect, and that will change the URL in the address bar. But it's really doing the same thing. It's calling view activities with the Strava ID. Okay. So let's try that this time. View unsaved activities. We'll try save on club championships. And we've got the URL up here, but see the URL now says view activities. It doesn't say save activity. So if I refresh, it's not going to do anything because it's just viewing. So that was good. Able to save bulk activities in the database. All right, so maybe you just want to find park runs that start on Saturday before 7:10 a.m. between 4.7 and 5.3 kilometers long. So we'll call this one fetch and save activities. And you see we've got a redirect at the bottom on that one. So let's put that function into views. And then we have to put this into URLs. And then put the pattern in. And then we'll create a hyperlink in our template. So where are our hyperlinks? View unsaved activities. We'll create a new one under that. Fetch Saturday activities. So there we go, fetch Saturday activities for this athlete. I might just delete, oh actually I'll leave them there. So let's try this. Didn't get an error message. We can see here 66 activities. But it didn't save them. Okay, let's have a look why that's happening. Save activities for that athlete. So we're going to fetch activities from Strava. That's the function we had from before. And it said we got 66, so that's good. There's a set of Saturdays we've already got. Then we'll go through each of the dictionaries that we've retrieved out of the API. grab the time zone, start date. If start date not in Saturday, and start time dot weekday equals 5. Start time is less than latest start time. I wonder what latest start time is. Oh, it's 10 minutes past 7. And our distance is between 4,700 and 5,300. Then set Saturday, add that start date, and create activity from Strava for that one. And by putting it into the set, that stops anything else from on that day from coming in. And then we view the activities. Alright, so let's put in some logging and see why we didn't get any information. So this one, successfully saved activity, that's right. And we want I think the ones the lack of success are probably more interesting. Unsuccessful. Okay, the ID equals that. The start date not in set Saturday. So we'll just check all these conditions and see which one is stopping them from happening. And this, we just need that. Okay, save that, and we'll try running that. Fetch Saturday activities. So here's all our log statements. So we've got the ID, so we've got true, so we need to be, here's one, why is this one not coming through? So start date not in set Saturday, so that one is, we've already got that one, so that must be, and the distance is 15.1 k's. So this one here is on a Saturday, it's ready to go in, false, so the false is start time less than latest start time. So I've got one that's right. Okay, so let's not, I think this is going to be a time zone issue. Not really interested in the ID, but I would like to know the title. What's the title? Distance. Title is name. Okay. And let's just do start date, see what the start date actually is. Okay. So I'm just showing you how to debug here. When it runs, so park run, and we're getting start time dot weekday equals 4, so that's the problem. It's coming up with the wrong date. All right, well, we've run out of time, so we won't, but we need to I need to find out why it's getting the wrong date out of the start time there. And the last thing that we had here was how to delete all activities for an athlete from the database. So let's have a go at that. So we'll create the function, put that into views. You should be getting used to this procedure by now. We create the URL. And we create the path pattern. And then we can put the URL into our template. And it looks like we're going to put it on the same line as save activities or something. So delete save activities for this athlete. All right, we'll just put it there. Closing tag matches nothing. Could probably fix that. Let's get rid of that one. Okay. Now we've got this link here, delete saved activities for this athlete. So I click on that and they've all been deleted. There we go. So that's the end of the session. Bit of homework and find out why that dates are not parsing correctly. I'll probably have to look at the original data that's coming from Strava and see why that's coming in. Must be some sort of time zone issue. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from that. And our next session will be the first Wednesday in December, which should be an absolute beginners session. And I hope to see you then. Thank you.